Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together. Well, listen, I know. Listen, I know it's this. It's 10:22. Listen, I don't mean to start this late, but listen, when I'm sitting there and having a conversation with Dave, and listen, no, it's just like, hey, you're 22 minutes late. No, no, listen. Hey, well, the great thing is that I'm not having to worry about some ridiculous advertising clock. Well, eventually we'll get there. And of course, when I am there, I'll be able to set the standard and raise the bar over there, just like I know how to do over here. But it is 10:22 here on 11/11 in the year 2023. It is Veterans Day. So shout out to all the veterans. We appreciate your service. I have a little Veterans Day segment coming up at the top of next hour. So shout out to Hypercube. That is AKA Crazy Toys. That's right. We have to roll the R. You have to roll the R. Crazy Toys. Crazy Toys. Kenzo's Creation. Kenzo's Creations is on there. White Vegeta. White Vegeta as well. You know, the thing about White Vegeta, did I ever tell you the story about White Vegeta? One time that me and White Vegeta, yes, of course, me and White Vegeta, we go back. We go back to a time where it was just me and him. It was just me and him. And he was like, hey, Sam, listen, I know of a little place around the corner. Because we were at Joe Fest. And he says, hey, listen, I know a little dive restaurant, a little sandwich shop. And I said, well, what do you mean, White Vegeta? He says, well, listen, I have the intel. And the intel says this is a sandwich shop that we should go to. So we went around. And once again, it was right around the corner from the convention. Me and White Vegeta, we go over there, and I don't remember exactly what I got, but it was a little dive sandwich shop. You know, you talk about dive bars. Well, this is like a little dive sandwich shop. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's probably one of the best sandwiches that I've had in a long time. Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah, listen, I tell you what, if you do get a chance to go to Augusta, Georgia, I don't know. I'm not really sure. People were asking me earlier. Well, yes, Retro Toy Con is next weekend. Yeah, well, I was supposed to go. I know. Ugh. I'm so upset. I am upset. I want to see all those guys down there. You know, Retro Toy Con, the great thing about Retro Toy Con is that it's kind of like, it's like youth camp. Does that make sense? Did you ever go to like youth camp? Yeah, well, Retro Toy Con is like youth camp. And I'm so upset, Pixel Dan's going to be there. I met Pixel Dan a couple of years back. What a great guy. What a great guy. But the real thing that I really wanted to do when I went down there this year is to interview Spencer Powers. You know who Spencer Powers is? Yeah, well, that's his wrestling persona. Listen, I wanted to get an interview with that. Shartimus Prime, a toy reviewer, has been around a long time. He's going to be down there too. And you know what's really cool? Last year we had the entire cast of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. This year, you know what they're doing? They are doing the entire X-Men. It's like an X-Men reunion from the X-Men cartoon. I know, yes, Cal Dodd, the voice of Wolverine. Come on, scum. Whatever, how he is, yeah, he's gonna be there. Oh man, listen, I'm telling you what, it pains me. It pains me to say that I'm gonna have to cancel. Maybe we'll try to go next year. I don't know. Listen, the only places really that I want to go next year is if I have two buddies in the industry. I do. One of them you guys have. Well, you guys know him, but we haven't had a conversation yet. And that's my buddy Ace from Ramen Toy. Now, eventually I'll have a conversation with Ace, and we have a whole thing that we have planned in the future for that. But as the Marshall continues its journey into production, we'll eventually get to that. So Ace over at Ramen Toy, and also General Bobby Valla over at Valaverse, wherever he is doing some conventions this in 2024. I got to get in touch with him. If he does, listen, I want to be there. Love the guys over at the 3POA. If you have a chance, listen to them. The 3POA podcast, probably the best. It's probably the most authentic and the best conversation podcast for toy collectors. I say that because it's very, very interesting. My buddy Ryan, I have a buddy of mine. His name is Ryan. People might know him. He goes by the name of Laser Pants, right? But Ryan is quite possibly one of the best podcast producers around. Right. And I mean that sincerely. The thing about Ryan, you follow him at Laser Pants 81. Laser Pants 81. The thing about Ryan is though that Ryan, Mr. Laser Pants, listen, he is the producer of the 3POA podcast. And this is something that came out of his mind, and it's their collaborative effort. And the great thing about it is that when you think about action figures and toys, you got to have people who can know what they're talking about. The first thing is that you have Ryan himself, Mr. Laser Pants. He's a modern collector. Yes, he's a modern collector, very fluid. But you know what? He had toys when he was growing up too. But the older you get, you kind of just are like, hey, I kind of like this more than that. Ryan is a modern collector. And then there's Tony Roberts. Who is Tony Roberts? Tony Roberts is Analog Toys. Analog Toys. And the great thing about Tony, well, God bless Tony. And we had a conversation on Facebook. I was saying something about his Patreon. He was like, hey, well, that's a weird comment, Sam, about Patreon. Well, it's because Patreon is, well, they're ridiculous in and of itself. It had nothing to do with communities. Like, community engagement on Patreon is incredible when you have it. But Patreon itself, well, that's another thing. But the great thing about Tony is that Tony served his country. Yes, in Her Majesty's Army. And I tell you what, when it comes to Tony is very interesting because, like I said, he's a soldier. So God love him. God love Tony and his willingness to serve his country, as a soldier. So that automatically, shoots him up to the top of the charts in terms of respectability, specifically here on a Veterans Day. So it may be Veterans Day here in America, but I want to salute all the veterans all around the world, right? Serving your country. I mean, it's Veterans Day here, but veterans, people serve, and people sit there and say, well, it takes a lot of courage. It's a selfless sacrifice. And like I said, we'll get to all that later at the top of next hour. But shout out to Tony, appreciate your service. Like I said, he's got a lot of IRL war stories. But the cool thing about it is, like I said, Ryan does the modern collecting. The thing about Tony is Tony does retro collecting. Man, what a retro toy collecting savant. Yes. Yeah. Tony does a great job at being a retro toy collecting savant. And the thing is these guys are just not fanboys. They will tell you what is exactly wrong with the action figures and the toys. They're not sitting there just saying, well, I'm a fanboy. Well, they could have done this. It's very self-aware. Of course, that's what I would expect from, of course, a soldier like Mr. Tony Roberts, aka Desert Rat, and of course, yes, Ryan, aka Laser Pants. Which brings me back to the general himself, General Bobby Valla. General Bobby Valla, met him several years ago. The great thing about Bobby is that he first time I talked to him, he had a championship belt over his shoulder, and it said Action Force. It was the Action Force Championship belt. And I remember getting right up in his face. And there's pictures online. I should repost that. I should redo this interview again. But he said, listen, when you're the man, you gotta be the man. And I'm gonna tell you what, in terms of action figures, and in terms of people who understand the community, listen, the reality is, yes, Bobby might have worked for Hasbro. He was in the corporate, he was inside the corporate gates of Mordor, if you will. But you know what? God love General Vela, because what he did was he said, you know what? Screw this. I have all these ideas for G.I. Joe. You're not going to do it. What am I going to do? There's a dormant property over here. It's called Action Force. And that was basically the G.I. Joe over in the UK. I'm going to go grab that and I'm going to go set the standard and raise the bar, which is exactly what he did. And he's continued to do. No, I know. Listen, I know. I've heard some people say this. Well, Sam, I think that some of the things it's too brittle. Like he used brittle plastics, and the guns break. Well, I had something fall off my shelf and it broke. Well, here's the problem: is that that's not his problem. That's your problem. Your figure shouldn't have, flown off the shelf. Oh, there's earthquakes and blah. I don't want to hear it. Put it in a soulless detolf in glass if you want to. I have a buddy of mine, Michael French, yeah, from Retro Blasting. Listen, I've not talked to Michael in a while. I got to listen. I need to get in touch with Michael. Yeah, Michael. Well, listen, I tell you what. If you thought about it, his whole collection is nothing but a collection in a soulless detolf. It is. Yeah, listen, the soulless detolf master. Michael French. But that's not the case. The real trick is that Michael French is a savant. He's a savant, green screen savant. Listen, you think that collection is real? I'm going to tell you right now that Michael French. I know Michael French. Listen, I've interviewed Michael French. And people sit there. I tell you what, the best part is when you see those trolls. Yeah, God bless Michael French. The thing that I like about Michael French the most is that he attacks the trolls. We're friends on Facebook. Like I said, he knows we have conversation. He loves the hat, and like I said. But I tell you what, the thing about if there's anything that you can learn from Michael French, other than the fact that he's a green screen master and all those toys behind him that you see are not real, the thing that you can learn from Michael French is that you got to go after the trolls. And you know what? It's just so fantastic. I think I've told him before. I said, what you need to do is you just need to show up at a convention. You got to just show up at a convention and just read troll comments in real time and just fillet their oh, it would be good. It would be good. Listen, I would pay for that. Listen, I would fund that. Hey, listen, Michael French just fillets everybody's comments. Sponsored by Sam Newsman. I think it would be great. Oh, no, listen. We've talked about all kinds of people. Triple D has duct tape. Triple D's in the chat. Kenzo, Joshua Miller, Sir Philosopher. Who is the Sir Philosopher dude? That is a good question. Who is this Sir Philosopher dude? This Sir Philosopher dude is a guy who has a show right after our show. And the cool thing about it is that, I sat there and I did pick one. I said, today is Veterans Day. And I said, well, hey, listen, I was like, you got it's Veterans Day, that. And he said, well, that's great. He was like, that's great, Sam. Why don't you just go ahead and continue to salute the troops as the world just continues to implode. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. What are you talking about? That's not what I meant. No, that's what I meant. Listen, there's some jazz arrangements, but we had a conversation about the Marines. I think I have a little jazz arrangement that's about a minute or so. I'm going to try to see if I can get him. Maybe he'll play that. But the Marines, yesterday, the Marines celebrated their 248th birthday. They did. Greatest fighting force in the Semper Fi. Hoorah! Yes, and you know what? It's interesting. If you look over here, on this lapel, I do have the Marine emblem over there. Yes, and I've had veterans always come up to me and they said, Sam, I see that you have the Marine emblem on your lapel. Talk to me about that. Listen, I love our veterans. It is a soulless thing, selfless. Sorry, not soulless. That's terrible. Selfless thing to do. Selfless thing to do is in terms of protect your family and also your country. So, once again, I can't serve. Listen, I'm just a puppet. What was that? What do you mean? Huh? Oh, no. Listen. What? Even if I did put on one of those like little bulletproof vests that says press on the front, and I have like, it shows that I'm press. You know what? Someone could just sit there and like shoot a rubber band, one of those rubber band guns. I mean, someone could shoot a spitball at me and it would mess up my felt completely. And I don't want that to happen. No, I'm not going to go down to Occupy Wall Street. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. They're like, well, Sam, why don't you go get the. No, no, listen, I've been doing this since Roswell. I've been doing this since Roswell. Listen, I'm not going to go to a place where there's riots happening. What? What do you mean the riots have not even started yet? Oh, you're talking about 2024. Ah, well, that's a whole different story. Anyway, so hey, listen, shout out to all my friends out there in the toy community. Another person I want to shout out to, casual toy collector Brucey, aka Jesus, every single Friday and Saturday night, 10:30. Casual toy collector, setting the standard, raising the bar. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. Oh yes, yes. Last but not least, we are all toy mercs. It's Splatter Day. Splatter Day, meaning that all the wholesome stuff that we try to do here is just going to get completely ruined by everybody over at Toy Mercs because, here I am trying to just bring the joys of Saturday morning, and Splatter Day shows up and it's horror images. God love you, Dead Man. Dead Man's not been feeling well this week. He's been sick. I sat there and I told him last night, I had a conversation. I said, Dead Man. He's like, man, Sam, I'm so sick. I said, well, it's Dead Man. You know what you need to do? You need to slam about 6,000 milligrams of vitamin C. I was like, just slam it. Don't worry about what everybody says. Just slam 6,000 milligrams of vitamin C. And he said, Sam, I'm slamming about 10,000. And I said, well, salute to you, sir. And tighten up. Stop whining and complaining. And, continue to make Toy Mercs the best toy community in all of toy collectingdom. Is that collectingdom? Is that the way? Is that how it was? Collectingdom. I think that's. I think. Well, we can use that as a new word, right? I don't know. Anyway, so it is 10:40 here on 11:11, and everybody's probably asking, well, Sam, you know what you've not done in a while is you not have given us a big D all up in our face. I mean, face in our in our ear. Yes, you're not giving us a big D all up in our ear. And you say, well, what's the big D? Well, it might sound a little bit crazy, but the big D all up in your ear is the D block. And that is the D block. And what does D mean? Well, you'll understand what the big D is all about if you just continue to listen to the show here on, what is it? The Live 365 app.